This is a beginner's guide that takes you through a logical completion order of the dungeons to help you get better at the game, as well as to point out several key items along the way. Starting out, you're welcome to try to defeat the beginning boss, but if you're able to beat him, then you probably don't need the rest of this guide. This is my main character, but everything else will be from the perspective of a new character I made to record all these videos. For everyone else, after you wake up in the Stranded Graveyard, I recommend you drop down into the Cave of Knowledge that goes through the pointing at it. This little tutorial dungeon will teach you the basic mechanics of the game. The final boss of this dungeon is the soldier god Rick. This will be a normal mob you see once you exit the cave, so get used to his moveset and you should be fine going forward. After exiting the cave, you'll see a dude wearing a white mask. Do not attack him, he has a whole quest line unless you access an area that is useful for experience farming later on. Looking forward, you will likely see a giant golden knight riding a horse. Avoid him also. Instead, you want to head towards the structure just past him. This is the Church of Ella. Talk to the merchant there and pick up the torch at the very least. He also has a crafting kit, which is also very useful later on for consumables. From here, continue heading north. If you open your map, you should see a little pillar. This is located in the Gatefront Ruins. This little pillar indicates a map fragment which will open a portion of your map. To the left and right of these ruins are two other sites of grace. I recommend going to one of those sites first and resting. This will trigger a cutscene that will get you a mount. She will also act as a finger maiden and allow you to level up at sites of grace. After getting the mount, feel free to sprint through the ruins and grab the map, but for now, don't worry about fighting anyone here, we'll get back to them. Instead, warp back to the Church of Ella while it is still nighttime to trigger another encounter. This is Brenna the Witch. Answer all of her questions truthfully and she will give you a spirit calling bell as well as a lone wolf ashes. This allows you to summon 3 spirit wolves to assist you in difficult encounters. You'll know you can summon them when you see a tombstone symbol on the left side of your screen. At this point, you have all the basic tools necessary to start your journey in the lands between. Moving forward, we're going to start tackling some dungeons. I'll be posting detailed walkthroughs of these dungeons later on if you want to make sure you aren't missing any unique items. For now, it's just going to be talking about what you should be getting out of the dungeon, as well as any items you really should be looking out for. The first dungeon I recommend is the Growthside Cave. It's a very straightforward dungeon. The boss is a Beastman of Faru Missoula. It is kind of fast, but it has a very consistent attack pattern. Try not to use your spirit wolves against this one so that you can work on solo combat more. Take this opportunity to work on the timing of your dodges, as well as parries if you are using a shield. There really isn't anything too exciting in this dungeon. Again, it's really just to get you more familiar with fighting, so take this opportunity to really fine-tune your skills against this enemy. If you're having trouble with him, maybe consider letting him kill you, respawning, and trying again, until you can really beat him without too much difficulty. The next dungeon is the Stormfoot Catacombs. This dungeon is a little longer and the imps throughout it can be challenging to beat if they manage to gang up on you. This dungeon is a good opportunity to work on group combat and lure enemies away so that you can fight them one-on-one if necessary. Also, while you're in any Catacombs type dungeon, you should be looking for Glowworts. Glowworts are used to power up your spirit summons, which is a feature you will unlock later in the game. The boss of this dungeon is an Erdtree Watchdog, but I think it looks more like a cat, but maybe that's just me. This will be a fairly common dungeon boss, so take this time to get familiar with the attack pattern. This enemy has slow attacks, so focus on baiting attacks and getting 1 or 2 hits in before having to dodge again. Again, I recommend trying to defeat this boss without having to rely on your spirit summons, but if you need them for a little bit extra backup, that's totally fine at this point. The reward for beating this boss is a new spirit summon, but I recommend sticking with your 3 wolves. They'll be your bread and butter for a while going forward. The next dungeon is actually going to be down in the Limgrave Tunnels in Aegeo Lake. Don't venture too far in the lake as the dragon will come out and you are likely not ready for this yet. The key there being yet. While in any tunnel type dungeon, keep an eye out for smithing stones. These stones will allow you to level up your weapons. Right now, you have access to the anvil at the Church of Ella, so this dungeon is a good opportunity for you to get materials to bolster your strength outside of your character levels. The minor enemies here have tough skin and normal attacks will likely bounce right off of them. Instead, you want to two-hand your weapon for better results. The boss of this dungeon is a Stone Digger Troll. Like the miners, it has a high hardness, so you'll want to two-hand your weapon or use magic. This is another enemy that you will see later on at the frequent mob in the overworld, so get used to how to deal with it. This is one enemy where you actually favor closer to its feet, but you still want to be careful. By this point, you should have a decent amount of experience and gotten a few level ups, so it's time to tackle the Gatefront Ruins in their entirety. There are several enemies here that you can face one-on-one. Some of them have a horn, and if they spot you, they will rally the rest of the camp to your location, so be careful with how you handle them. I recommend attempting the Gatefront Ruins until you're able to successfully defeat all the enemies without too much difficulty. Two things you want to find in this area is the map fragment, which we talked about earlier, as well as the whetstone knife in the cellar located in the southeastern portion of the ruins. This key item will allow you to imbue your weapons and shields with Ashes of War, which are basically special abilities. At this point, you have faced a variety of enemies and are able to level up your primary weapon. There are still several dungeons left in Limgrave, and we will start seeing more NPC questlines starting going forward. Let's start by finding Bach. Go ahead and teleport to the Yeo Lake north side of Grace, and heading to roughly this location. You'll hear someone asking for help, and if you're playing online, you may find a bunch of messages around a bush. Go ahead and roll in the bush and talk to the little guy 3 times, and he will mention a cave on the coast. You can get to the coastal cave by parkouring down the side of the mountain to the west of the Church of Ella. If you haven't already, buy a torch from the merchant, as this dungeon is very dark. Once in here, you will find Bach again, talk to him a couple of times, and continue forward. This is a dual boss and minion fight, and it is 2 demi-human chiefs and a handful of normal demi-humans. Once you have one, you will get a sewing needle and sewing kit. Before you take those back to Bach, continue forward and you'll find another cave. If you follow this cave, it will take you to a small island with a Church of Dragon Communion. Later on, when you have some dragon hearts, you can come here to learn 3 different dragon incantations. Once you get to the side of Grace on the island, head back to Bach and give him the sewing items. After Bach, we're going to make our way to the Murkwater Cave by following the northern border of Agil Lake. On your way here, you will get invaded by an NPC, and if you wait a few more seconds, another NPC Yura will be summoned to help you fight the invader. Once defeated, you will get the Reduvia, which is a very solid dagger, especially early game. It causes bloodlust buildup and has an Asher War that sends out a blade of blood. You can find Yura again a little farther north after he vanishes, but that's not necessary for his quest. Instead, we're going to continue into the Murkwater Cave. This cave is very short. The key thing here is not to kill Patches, who is the dungeon boss. After he loses about half of his health, he will beg for his life. Wait a few seconds and you'll be able to talk to him again. Exhaustive dialogue. Whenever you decide to come back, he will have set up shop at the merchant. The main item you want to buy here is Margaret's Shackle. This item will be able to make a boss battle later on much easier as it binds him twice for several seconds, but we'll talk about that later. When you come back, you may be tempted to open another chest that you find there, but don't. It's actually a trap, and it'll send you off into the woods, roughly in the location I'm highlighting here. There's a giant rune bear there, and once you get teleported, you won't be able to teleport back or use your map or anything, so just don't do it. Alright, so at this point we've gotten a lot of buffs for our melee characters, so it's time to show our sorcerer some love. We're going to cross the bridge and head to the Waypoint Ruins. Be careful if you're crossing at night, as you will encounter a knight's cavalry. You are welcome to attempt this fight, but again, it might be a little outside your skill range at the moment. Instead, continue to the ruins. You will see 2 trolls and several low-level mobs. You can fight them, and in their carriage you will be rewarded with a great axe, which isn't overly remarkable, so it's up to you to skip it. Once you find the dungeon to the ruins, you will encounter a mad pumpkin head. Try to focus on attacking from behind, as his metal head does negate a lot of damage. Again, try to beat him without using your summons, but at this point it's really up to you. Once defeated, activate the Site of Grace and go through the doors. You'll meet the sorceress Helene. She will teach you many new sorceries, and this is where the build really starts to catch its stride. You'll also find scrolls in various locations that you can bring to her and learn more sorceries. At this point, incantations and range are the only 2 builds that haven't really got a ton of love, but they'll start to pick up later on. As a little bonus, you can exit the ruins and head a little south. On the map, you should see some rows of rectangular markings. This denotes a graveyard. When visiting a graveyard, you will find various golden runes, which can be used or sold for runes. Be on the lookout for these on your map, as the quality of runes will increase as the game progresses. From the Waypoint Ruins cellar side of Grace, we're going to follow the road heading north. This is likely covered with a fog of war unless you did some exploring and found the map fragment for this region. So just stay on the main trail. You will eventually hear someone asking for help. This is Kenneth Height. Go ahead and exhaust his dialogue, and he will ask for help reclaiming his fort to the southeast. Go ahead and accept. Before continuing forward, jump to the ledge to the north of the structure Kenneth is standing on to find another cemetery. Go ahead and loot the golden runes for some easy experience. I would recommend waiting until you actually need the runes to use them. That way, if you die and are unable to retrieve your runes for any reason, you don't lose everything. Now go ahead and continue following the trail to the northeast. You will find a troll blocking the road. You can fight him or run past him, the choice is yours. Past him, you'll find the Third Church America. In this church, you will find a flask of Wondrous Physic, as well as a Crimson Crystal Tear. The flask is one-time consumable that will give you the buffs of whatever 2 tiers you have added to it. It will refill every time you rest at a Site of Grace, and that is also where you can change the various tiers in the flask. It's not too exciting right now, but it will get much better as you play more. You can also find a sacred tier, which can be used to upgrade the potency of your flasks, aka more HP regain. You use these upgrades at a site of grace. You can find these tiers at nearly every church you visit, so be on the lookout for them. To the north of the church, you'll find a teardrop scarab. Defeat it to get the Sacred Blade Ash of War. Using this Ash of War will allow you to defeat skeletons without worrying about them respawning immediately. From here, head back to the church, and we're going to follow the same trail south, and you should see a minor Erdtree in the distance. This is our next destination. Along this trail, when you open the map, you should see a pillar that denotes the next map framework for this area. Go ahead and grab this, and then head to the base of the minor Erdtree to pick up the Spike Crack tier and a green Spill Crystal tier. These are both used for the flask that we just picked up. You'll also notice a small building to the north of the Erdtree. Feel free to head down there and activate the site of grace at the bottom of the well, but I would imagine this area is a bit outside your level range right now. This is a whole new section to be explored later on. It's not just a simple dungeon. We'll explore here much later, so don't worry about it, just enjoy the view. Back on the surface, you will notice some ruins to the west of the tree. I don't recommend finding the bears here as they are very strong. However, you should make a quick lap through the area until you hear some howling. This unlocks the dialogue option with Kale back at the Church of Ella. Once you hear the howling, continue south until you find the Fort Height west side of Grace. To the north of the site, you will find a merchant. He does sell a shield that has 100% physical damage negation, so if you're using a shield, I recommend you buy that. Next, we will reclaim Fort Height. There's a variety of different enemies in here, so make your way through however you see fit. Three things to note are that outside the fort you will see an Erdtree sapling, and under that sapling you will find an Erdtree seed. This will increase the number of flasks you have, which can be used at any site of grace. Almost every sapling will give you a seed, so be on the lookout for them. Second, there isn't a traditional boss for this fort, however at the top there's a soldier of Godric that uses a bloody slash Ash of War. He is stronger than the others, and the fort isn't reclaimed until after you defeat him. Finally, once you beat him, you will see a ladder leading even higher. Go ahead and climb that ladder to get the left half of the Dectus Medallion. Not super important right now, but it will let you skip a longer dungeon later in the game if you want. Once defeated, head back to Kenneth Haight, exhaust his dialogue for a reward, then meet him again back at the fort to complete this section of his questline. It continues later on with a better reward, so don't worry. After completing the previous portion of Kenneth's questline, it's time to address the howling in the woods we heard earlier. Head back to Kale and mention it to him. He will give you a new gesture and say to use it when you're under where the noise is coming from. This might be a good time to suggest getting rid of all your other gestures. Certain movements on the controller can activate them. I'm not sure how it works with the PC, but there may be something similar. For now, just leave the finger snap gesture as the only one and head back to the Mistwood Ruins. If you find the northwestern wall and look up, you should see a looming figure. Go ahead and finger snap and Blythe will jump down. Exhaust his dialogue and he will mention he is looking for someone. That's where we're headed next. Starting at the Fort Height west side of Grace, we're going to head southwest to find a third cemetery to loot. Once you're done grave robbing, continue south along the edge of the wall and you will eventually find a path with a north-south direction. Head north and you will see a giant funnel of air. This is the Spirit Spring, and if you jump on one, you will launch into the air and you will receive no fall damage. Likewise, if you jump onto one from any height, you will also receive no fall damage. If you're a sorcerer, let's go ahead and use it to jump to the east side of this cliff. This is an enemy stronghold. Feel free to defeat everyone in here, but we're mostly after a Royal House scroll on the structure on the eastern side of the encampment. You can take the scroll back to Selen to learn a couple additional sorceries. Feel free to loot through the rest of the camp. Once you're done, use the Spirit Spring to jump to the western side of the cliffs. Here you will find an Evergaol housing the Bloodhound Knight Darrowall. Enter the Evergaol and you are welcome to fight Darrowall solo, but there are a couple things to note. You can use all of your buffs prior to entering Evergaol's, but right now you probably don't have any, but it's just good for future reference. Second, you cannot use Spirit Summons in Evergaol's, and 3, you can actually summon Blythe from a symbol on the ground to assist you with this fight. You don't need to summon him to continue his questline and get his reward, but if you're having a hard time here, he is here to help. I recommend at least trying a few times solo. This is an enemy you will see occasionally in the open world, and figuring out how to fight him now will make things easier in the future. Once you defeat him, you will get the Bloodhound's Fang, a powerful curved greatsword with a 2-part Ash of War. Activate it like normal and then use a heavy attack to dash forward for a second strong attack. Talk to Blythe to receive a Somber Smithing Stone 2. Regular Smithing Stones are used to upgrade normal weapons, and Somber Smithing Stones are used to upgrade special weapons. Special weapons are mostly just weapons that have a unique Ash of War that cannot be changed. This will conclude the part 1 of the beginner's guide. I'll start working on part 2 ASAP. For more, please like, follow, share, and comment. GG everyone.